we move on to the Corbett report. Colleague Riesel, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are two aims here: improving the efficiency of Parliament's work and strengthening our transparency rules. First of all, oral questions. These are the questions we submit to Commission. The Commission is supposed to reply within 4 weeks. It's a democratic right, but which is being abused, so that now the Commission doesn't really look at the substance of questions. We've got to ring-fence this to just 1 or 2 questions a month, and to try and create a virtuous circle, real questions to get real responses. All we're doing is just ridiculous to have 7 questions and 5, and of course there are costs attached. It's about 500 odd per question, so 30 million a year for an exercise which is to the expression of democratic interest what Brunello wine is to Coca-Cola. We can't be consultants and MEPs and possible subject to influence peddling. That's essential too. Thank you.
Ángela VALLINA, prego.
Thank you. Ángela VALLINA for 1 minute, please.
Yes, Presidente.
Yes, thank you very much, President. I voted against the changes to the rules of procedure because even if we had fewer powers and competences in the past, now we're going to further reduce our decision-making power, limiting the number of questions we can put to the Commission, limiting the possibility to amend texts with which we don't agree, and also limiting the position of the European Parliament vis-à-vis the Council when it comes to negotiations. At the same time, it's a reform on the part of the Grand Coalition, where only the issues which are of interest to them and the larger political groups are going to be dealt with. And this means that a block is going to be put in the way of the work that we're doing, and those of us who are trying to do something about workers' rights and immigration, we're being halted in our tracks. So this is a bad day for European democracy and a bad day for European citizens. And what we want is a Europe that represents.
Gracias, Presidente.
Mrs. López Bermejo, I voted no because the Corbett report is an attack on pluralism, to transparency and democracy, which increases the distance between this Parliament and the European people. The big groups have agreed to silence the critical voices. They've limited the right to amend, submit questions and generally participate in parliamentary debate. And so as to cover their tracks, they've also reduced the number of debates and transparency in voting. The new rules of procedure formalise what some of us have been denouncing for some time. This Parliament is just a theatre where the agreements between socialists and the right are staged whilst a silenced and dumbfounded people watch on as their social rights and freedoms are being destroyed in the name of the market. The European Union isn't going to survive this democratic regression.
MACOVEI, prego, un minuto.
Colleague MACOVEI, 1 minute, please.
Mulțumesc. În raport se menționează că imunitatea parlamentară nu este un privilegiu personal al deputatului.
Yes, thank you very much. It says that these things should not be a personal privilege for the MEPs, but a guarantee for the European Parliament in total, and a guarantee for us as well. And I would agree with some of these principles, and I feel that immunity should not be applied when it comes to unethical and immoral acts, but also in the case of criminal offences and procedures. And so there should be protection, obviously, against criminal persecution at the European level and the national level, but this does not mean that we should be able to do anything wherever and whenever. We are able to vote, we can express our opinions, but we're not totally independent, and obviously when we break laws and infringe rules, that's for immunity. That we have to be, our activities have to be transparent. Because what about whistleblower protection? Those who are within the institutions and then inform the press and the outside world of what is actually going on inside the institutions. That they don't have enough protection yet, but I would imagine that's going to be dealt with later on.
Matias, prego, un minuto.
Colleague Matias.
Thank you, Mr. President. Some of the founding principles of the European Union includes equality of all citizens. It means that all votes, the votes of all citizens, are of equal weight. Therefore, the people they elect have the same rights They are all equal and should be equal in this House. They should all enjoy the same rights, but that's what real democracy is. But this report shows complete disrespect for democracy, as described. It's a shameless rubber stamping of the worst kind of political deal-making, backroom deals. I never thought that the European Parliament would be the only directly elected institution of the European Union that would contribute to beef up the democratic deficit. You've granted legitimacy to this democratic deficit, a rubber stamp.
Thank you. Colleague Pospíšil, 1 minute, please.
Thank you, Chair. I have not supported this report. I have not supported the changes of the rules of procedures. Firstly, because I don't think the rules should be changed in the middle of our term. If at all we should change those rules of procedures, they should apply to the new term so that everybody is clear about how this Parliament works. And secondly, the individual rights of MEPs are being limited. I do not understand why for example, explanations of votes should be limited in person. That's a very good way in which every MEP can explain why he votes in a particular way. What will happen in future is the MEPs will not be able to clarify the motives for their behavior, and that will distance them from their electorate, and it will make Brussels and their institutions even more distant from the citizens. These changes are not good. Thank you.
Grazie, onorevole Polčák.
Thank you. Colleague Polčák, 1 minute, please.
Thank you, President. I agree with what Mr. Pospíšil said, particularly what relates to the explanation of votes, but still I have decided to support this report. It is evident that individual rights of MEPs are violated. We are limited in our rights, and for me, this is a disadvantage. However, there are also some advantages, such as more transparency in the decision-making of the European Parliament. Also, some of the rights are rather illusionary. For instance, non-attached members in the European Parliament have very limited rights. So, due to many reasons, because of the increase of transparency, and because we have been able to limit the number of unnecessary questions, I have decided to support.
Thank you. Colleague Hannan, 1 minute, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Are we doing Mr. Hannan or myself?
No.
Mr. Hannan? Mr. Chairman, are we doing Mr. Hannan or myself?
Prego.
Thank you. I'll start again. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Students of liberty will tell you that throughout our history there is the ebb and flow and battle between the people trying to regain power from those who wish to control the people. They will tell you where their power is concentrated too much in the hands of those who lead us, then there will be problems with the people and often abuse of their lives. We can see what happened in Cuba. We can see what happened in Cambodia or China or the Soviet Union. Now, Mr. Corbyn's party has a member here from the Labour Party who wants to introduce his own constitutional manipulation of this House. Now, he's not a communist. He doesn't come from those countries. But he comes from a party that supports Cuban leaders, supports people who were in the Soviet Union, and supported those who believed that the power of the people should be suppressed by the power of organisations. This changes to this House will ensure that this continues, but I believe many more people will want to leave the European Union on the basis of it.
Honourable James.
Colleague James, 1 minute, please.
Mr. Deputy Chairman, thank you very much. Now, in the past few months, I've sat on the committee that produced this report, and I've witnessed the final stages of the work which has been done and which we voted on this morning. Supposedly to make the Parliament function better for the states that wish to remain members of the European Union and be governed by the body in the years to come. Now, if the people of the United Kingdom had not voted to leave the European Union on the 23rd of June, there would have been a number of clauses that I would have voted against or wanted amended today. However, I chose to abstain almost constantly throughout and only voted against at the very end, since I do not believe in more Europe, I do not believe in more EU control, and I felt the report was fundamentally flawed. There was a request right at the beginning to defer this report and to send it back to committee, and it's a very great shame that that request was ignored. Thank you.
Onorevole Seán Kelly, prego, un minuto.
Seán Kelly, please, for 1 minute.
Thank you, President. I voted in favour of this report along with my group. And I think that Mr. Corbett deserves a lot of praise, as do the other members who are involved in this complex report. They have achieved a great feat, and we should acknowledge that. We need to review the Parliament's rules of procedure, and it's important that citizens understand what goes on in Parliament. They need to understand that we are as open as we can be and that we promote transparency. In that way, citizens will have faith in the European Parliament, and that is extremely important. We need to explain to citizens what we do, what groups we meet with, what these groups have to say, and why we make specific decisions at the end of the day. I think that's extremely important, and this report will help us to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleague KORWIN-MIKKE, 1 minute.
I have voted against because I don't agree with the method the changes are introduced. Especially, I agree absolutely with you, Mr. Chairman, that the rules cannot determine what the ex-deputies are doing after they stop to be deputies, but they can lobby. But why cannot I speak against European Union and try to destroy European Union, and I am losing my benefits? It is incoherent. Moreover, I think European Union must be destroyed. Thank you very much.
Onorevole Corbett, prego.
Colleague Corbett. Now we'll hear the author, the draftsman of this particular report.
By thanking all colleagues for those comments, but let me also reiterate that this report was 2 years in preparation, through a working group in which every single political group was present and participated constructively in this, before it even went for public discussion in the committee and public discussion and vote in this House. Very high majorities, extremely high majorities, backed the key changes proposed in this report. So those who now claim that this is a great conspiracy, that this is some sort of coup d'etat, as one of our colleagues from over there claimed, or that this is some great manipulation, I sometimes wonder whether they've actually read what is in the report, or whether they are just posturing for some segment of public opinion back in their home country. And those who really do care, Mr. Woolfe, about concentrations of power should stand up for an effective, efficient and transparent parliament, a pluralistic parliament that is able to stand up for pluralism in the European Union, for scrutiny of the executive, for holding the other European institutions to account. That is what this report is about making our parliament clearer, more transparent and more effective in doing its work. And let me finish with one thing, Mr. President. If Britain does indeed go ahead and leave the European Union, then let it not be said that British members have not contributed to making this Parliament an effective, vibrant Parliament, able to act on behalf of the citizens that send us here. Thank you very much.
Grazie, onorevole Corbett.
Thank you, Mr. Corbett. And congratulations on getting your report through. We now move on to the Nodge report. Ms. Giuffrida has 1 minute. Michaela. Thank you, Mr. President. The European Union, for thousands of people fleeing war and famine, is a promise of civilization and promise. But